1. Let me tell you about this interesting 1983 Ford F-150 I found on Craigslist for $9,500. I've got to say, this one's caught my attention for some good reasons. This is a regular cab long bed with that awesome patina black-gray finish that's become so popular these days. Under the hood, you're looking at a V8 with an automatic transmission, and here's something cool. It's got dual gas tanks, front and back, which was a pretty neat feature for these trucks. What really stands out is the documented $12,000 worth of work done in 2021. We're talking fresh engine gaskets, transmission seals, steering pump, water pump, spark plugs, and even a lift kit. And get this, they've got all the receipts from Titan Motor to prove it. The interior is surprisingly well preserved for a 40-year-old truck, with no dash cracks, which is pretty rare for these. Now, being honest here, there is one issue. The gas gauge gets stuck. But considering the overall condition and the recent mechanical overhaul, that's a pretty minor concern. The truck's showing 125,000 miles, has a clean title, and comes with a vehicle history report showing no accidents. At $9,500, especially given the documented recent work and the fact it was purchased for $14,000 3 years ago, this seems like a solid deal for someone looking for a classic F-150 that's mechanically sorted. These trucks are getting harder to find in good condition, and with all the recent work, this one's ready for either daily use or could be a great platform for further restoration. 2. We're looking at a pretty sweet 1970 Chevy C10 that's caught my eye, listed at $20,000. Let me tell you why this classic truck is worth talking about. This is a long wheelbase C10 that underwent a cab-off restoration a few years back, which is a serious commitment to quality. Under the hood, you've got a 350 V8 with some nice performance upgrades. We're talking a mild cam, headers, and an Edelbrock carb setup. The power is managed through an automatic transmission, making it a comfortable cruiser. What's really cool here is that it's an original AC truck, and get this, the AC actually works. That's pretty rare for a truck of this vintage. The owners added some modern touches, including a powerful sound system with an amp, and it's rolling on brand new 16-inch wheels and tires with less than 1,000 miles on them. Being completely honest here, the seller mentions it still needs some minor TLC, which is something to consider at this price point. However, with 73,000 miles on the odometer and a clean title, plus the extensive restoration work already done, you're getting a solid foundation. The white paint looks clean in the photos, and considering this was a cab-off restoration, you're likely looking at a pretty straight body. These C10s have become incredibly popular in the classic truck market, and finding one with working AC and significant mechanical upgrades isn't easy. At $20,000, while it's not cheap, you're getting a restored classic with desirable upgrades and most of the heavy lifting already done. The seller's not in a rush and isn't entertaining low offers, which usually suggests confidence in the truck's condition and value. 3. We're checking out something really special, a 1957 Chevy 3100 short bed pickup listed at $28,000. Let me walk you through this beautiful piece of American automotive history. This is a seriously well-restored 3100 that's had pretty much everything gone through. It's running a small block V8 with a fresh 4-barrel carb setup, and the owner's done all the right mechanical updates. New fuel pump, water pump, alternator, and an HEI distributor. The transmission is a professionally rebuilt 700R4 overdrive, which is a fantastic upgrade that makes this classic actually usable on modern highways. The brake system has been modernized with power disc brakes up front, drums in the rear, and all new lines with a dual bowl master cylinder. That's a huge safety upgrade from the original setup. While it's still running manual steering, the owner mentions it turns easily thanks to a rebuilt steering box, and they've installed a new steering column with modern signals and wiring. What's really impressive is the attention to detail in the restoration. We're talking a new bed with oak wood and stainless trim, new front fenders, replaced cab corners and door bottoms. The interior's been completely redone with new carpet, seat covers, and headliner. They even painted the frame when the body was off. That's thorough. Being completely honest here, the only negative is that it doesn't have AC, but that's pretty common for these trucks, and adding it later is always an option if you want it. At $28,000, considering the extensive restoration work and all the new components, you're looking at a fair price for a well-sorted classic truck. The seller's open to reasonable negotiations, which is always good. These 57 Chevys are absolute icons, and this one, with its blue paint and chrome trim, looks like it's been done right. 4. We're looking at something truly special, a 1971 Ford F-100 Ranger 4x4 that's listed for $20,000, and let me tell you, this is one rare bird. What makes this truck particularly interesting is that it's a genuine 4x4 with a manual 3-speed transmission featuring that old-school granny gear, a combination that's getting increasingly hard to find. Under the hood, you're looking at the original 360 FE V8, and with only 36,000 miles showing on the odometer, this is a remarkably low-mileage example. The sellers kept this truck pretty close to original, but they've made a few smart upgrades. One of the coolest additions is the retro sound radio. It looks period correct but offers modern Bluetooth connectivity. That's a perfect blend of vintage style and modern convenience. Plus, this truck has working AC and heat, which is a huge plus for a vehicle of this age. Being in excellent condition and wearing white paint, this F-100 Ranger represents a really clean example of early 70s Ford trucks. The Ranger trim level was the upscale version back then, so you're getting some nice additional features compared to the base model. At $20,000, while it's not cheap, you're paying for rarity here. Finding a 4x4 F-100 from this era, especially with such low mileage and in excellent condition, is like finding a needle in a haystack. The fact that it's got working AC and that clever radio upgrade just adds to the appeal. 5. We're looking at a pretty special 1985 Ford F-150 that's caught my attention, listed at $15,500. Let me tell you why this one's worth talking about. What we've got here is a single-family-owned F-150, powered by Ford's legendary 300 cubic inch inline 6, and let me tell you, these engines are known for being virtually indestructible. With just 76,000 original miles, this truck has barely been broken in, considering these power plants are known to run well past 300,000 miles when maintained properly. The current owner has clearly taken good care of this classic, with recent work including a rebuilt engine and brake system, new carburetor, oxygen sensor, and throttle position sensor. They've even put new tires on it, which is always a nice bonus. The automatic transmission makes it an easy daily driver, and being a single family-owned vehicle means you're more likely to get the full history of the truck. Being completely honest here, the seller mentions it's not perfect, but they're upfront about it being in very good condition overall, which is refreshing. The interior is described as good, which is pretty impressive for a truck approaching 40 years old. At $15,500, while it might seem a bit steep for an 85i F-150, you're paying for documented history, low miles, and recent mechanical work. These 7th-generation F-Series trucks are gaining popularity among collectors, especially clean, well-maintained examples like this one. 6. We're checking out an interesting 1960 Ford F-100 that's listed for $8,750, and this one's got some unique custom touches that make it stand out. This classic pickup is running a 289 V8 that's been built with some nice upgrades. We're talking a 4-barrel carb, mild lift camshaft, and it's been bored .030 over for a bit more punch. The automatic transmission makes it an easy cruiser, and they've upgraded to disc brakes, which is a huge safety improvement over the original drums. Now here's where it gets interesting. This truck's got some cool custom touches like a reverse opening hood, always a crowd pleaser at car shows, and 65 Mustang bucket seats, which is a pretty clever upgrade from the original bench. There's even a sunroof, which you definitely didn't see on these trucks back in 1960. Being completely honest here, the seller mentions it's been stored for several years, which means you'll probably want to go through all the usual revival procedures before making it a regular driver. The actual mileage is unknown, which is pretty common for vehicles of this vintage. At $8,750, considering the custom work and the upgraded drivetrain, you're looking at a pretty fair price for a classic F-100 with some personality. The red paint gives it that classic hot rod look, and with the disc brake upgrade, it should be more practical to drive than a stock example. For someone looking for a classic truck with some hot rod flair that won't break the bank, this F100 could be a solid choice. Just remember to factor in some recommissioning costs since it's been in storage. But the bones of a cool custom truck are definitely here. 7. We're looking at something pretty unique. A 1969 Chevy C50 dump truck listed at $10,500. And this isn't your everyday classic truck find. This is a restored short bed dump truck powered by a 350 V8, showing 76,465 miles on the clock. The sellers put some recent work into it with new rear wheel cylinders and front brake drum, which is important for a truck of this size and capability. Now, let's be completely honest here. While it's described as restored and in excellent condition, there is some tornado damage to note. Yes, you heard that right, tornado damage. The damage affects the hood and mirror, which is something you'll want to check out in person. However, considering the brutal force of a tornado, it's pretty impressive that's all the damage it sustained. The blue paint looks sharp in a workmanlike way, and these C50s were built to be absolute workhorses. With the manual transmission, you're getting that old-school truck driving experience that's becoming increasingly rare these days. At $10,500, you're looking at a pretty interesting price point for a restored classic commercial vehicle. These C50s are getting harder to find, especially in restored condition, and the dump bed functionality means it could still be a useful work truck or an eye-catching showpiece. 8. We're looking at something seriously impressive. A 1968 GMC 2500 that's been built to be an absolute beast, listed at $25,000. Let me tell you why this truck is special. This isn't your average 68 GMC. It's running a high-performance 454 V8, paired with a bulletproof Teach 400 transmission with straight-cut gears. The drivetrain setup is serious business, featuring a 205 transfer case, Dana 44 front axle, and a 1-ton GM corporate rear diff with an EZ locker. That's some heavy-duty hardware, folks. What makes this truck really unique is its super camper configuration. We're talking dual battery setup, 2 gas tanks, custom jerry can holders, and active cooling. The suspension's been beefed up with 3-leaf front springs and an oversized sway bar, plus it's got heavy-duty skid plates protecting the vital bits underneath. The comfort and convenience features are impressive too. Factory AC, which is rare for these, factory tack, and GM captain's chairs with armrests. The custom front bumper includes transmission and oil coolers with fans, and there's a heavy-duty rear storage bumper with a spare tire carrier. Being honest here, while the odometer shows 30,739 miles, it's listed as TMU, true mileage unknown, which is common for vehicles this age. However, the truck has been professionally appraised as a 3+ on the Haggerty scale, which indicates it's in above-average condition. At $25,000, you're getting a seriously capable classic 4x4 that's been built with purpose. Every modification seems thoughtfully chosen for reliability and functionality. Those big OAT tires aren't just for show. This truck means business. 9. We're checking out a sweet 1972 Chevrolet C10 Cheyenne that's listed for $17,500, and this one's got some interesting details worth talking about. What we're looking at here is a Cheyenne trim C10, which was the upscale version of Chevy's popular pickup. Under the hood, you've got the reliable 5.7L V8. That's the 350 cubic inch for us old school folks, paired with an automatic transmission, a combination that's proven to be one of the most dependable powertrains ever put in a pickup truck. The green-on-green color combination is period correct and pretty rare to find these days. Most of these trucks have been repainted in more modern colors. With just 16,138 miles showing on the odometer, this is an incredibly low mileage example, though as with any 50-year-old vehicle, you'll want to verify the mileage history. The Cheyenne package means this truck came with more creature comforts than the standard C10, including better interior trim and additional exterior chrome details. These early 70s Chevys are really hitting their stride in the collector market right now, especially clean, well-optioned examples like this one. At $17,500, while it's not cheap, you're paying for what appears to be a well-preserved piece of American truck history. The Cheyenne trim level, original color combination, and low mileage make this a particularly interesting example. 10. We're looking at a pretty cool 1963 GMC 4R4 short-box step-side that's listed for $17,000, and this one's got an interesting story to tell. First off, let's address the identity crisis. While it's wearing a Chevy grille and tailgate, this is actually a GMC underneath. It's rocking a 283 V8 paired with a rebuilt turbo 350 transmission, and the seller's honest about the engine needing some fine-tuning. The truck's sitting on some serious Mickey Thompson 35-inch tires, which give it that perfect classic 444 stance. The seller's put some good money into this rig. We're talking a new wood bed, various body panels, new radiator with an electric fan, and a low-car shifter. The paint job is 5 to 6 years old, and they've added a dual exhaust system. Pretty cool that it comes with the original build sheet too. Being completely honest here, the seller mentions it's 90% complete, with some electrical work needed, and the engine compartment requiring some sprucing up. The 283 runs but needs tuning, so factor that into your plans if you're interested. The interior is described as clean, which is always good news for a 60-year-old truck. These early 60s GM trucks are getting harder to find, especially in 4x4 configuration with the desirable short-box step-side setup. At $17,000, you're getting a mostly complete classic 4x4 that just needs some finishing touches. The hard work's been done with the new parts and rebuilt transmission, but you'll still have some fun weekend projects to make it perfect. 11. We're checking out something really special. A 1950 GMC 100 series pickup listed at $18,000, and this one's got that perfect vintage charm that's getting harder to find. What we've got here is a wonderfully original long bed pickup powered by its original 228 cubic inch inline-six engine. One of the coolest features is that classic 3-on-the-tree manual transmission. If you've never driven one, it's a piece of automotive history that every car enthusiast should experience. The truck's showing 107,542 miles, with a rolled-over odometer, which is expected for a 73-year-old vehicle. And what's impressive is that it's still running and stopping well. The seller mentions it's in very original condition, which is becoming increasingly rare for these early post-war trucks. Most have either been heavily modified or left to rust away. Wearing green paint, this GMC has that perfect vintage work truck look. The seller's honest about its capabilities. They're pitching it as a great around-town vehicle for coffee runs, groceries, or trips to the dump, which tells me it's a functional classic rather than just a showpiece. At $18,000, you're paying for originality and character here. These early GMCs are less common than their Chevy counterparts, making them more unique at car shows. Plus, that original inline-six engine is known for its reliability and torque. They really built them to last back then. 12. We're looking at a 1981 Chevrolet El Camino listed at $7,000, but I've got to point out something interesting right off the bat. The seller has listed this as FWD, which is incorrect as El Caminos were definitely rear-wheel drive vehicles. This El Camino is sporting its original V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, and with just 40,456 miles showing on the odometer, it's a relatively low mileage example for its age. The brown exterior paired with the red interior is a classic color combination from the early 80s era. Now, being completely honest here, while the seller describes it as like new, you'll want to verify that condition in person, as that's a pretty bold claim for a 42-year-old vehicle. Also, that FWD listing in the specs is definitely a red flag that suggests the seller might not be fully familiar with the vehicle's specifications. The El Camino is one of those unique vehicles that combines the comfort of a car with the utility of a pickup truck, what Chevy called a coupe utility. The 81 model year featured the more squared-off design that defined the later El Caminos, and these models are becoming increasingly collectible. At $7,000, if the condition is as good as claimed, you're looking at a fair price for a piece of unique American automotive history. These vehicles are perfect for someone who wants something different from the usual classic car scene, They're practical enough to use regularly while still being show-worthy. 13. We're looking at a 1972 GMC C10 listed at $25,000, and I've got to be honest, the seller's description leaves us with quite a few questions. What we know is that it's a V8-powered 4A4 wearing green paint, showing 10,000 miles, though we'd need to verify if that's since restoration or original, and the seller describes it as being in excellent condition. The owner is refreshingly honest about not being a car guy, and admits they might not be able to answer detailed questions about the truck. Now, being completely transparent here, while the seller claims it's priced below market for its condition, we're not given many details about what work has been done, what engine it's running, or any restoration history. That's something you definitely want to investigate in person. The 72 GMC C10s are highly desirable classics, especially in 4R4 configuration, which wasn't as common back then. These trucks have indeed been appreciating in value, so the seller's comment about future value isn't off base. At $25,000, you're in the territory where you should expect a very well-sorted example. The price point suggests this might be a restored or heavily modified truck, but without more details about its specifications or condition, it's hard to make a definitive value judgment. 14. We're checking out a 1955 Chevy 3100 pickup listed at $25,000, and this one's got some serious hot rod DNA under its patina. Let's talk about what makes this truck special. It's running a 355 small block built by Chuck's Racing Engines. That's a stroked 350 for those wondering. Paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. The owners made some smart upgrades, including power-assisted front disc brakes, which is a huge safety improvement over the original drums. The seller's been honest about the truck's condition, listing it as fair, and openly acknowledging it needs paint and some light body work. But don't let that scare you. They've invested in all the right places. We're talking new rally wheels wrapped in BF Goodrich TA radials, fresh sound and thermal insulation, new carpet and headliner, and a refurbished bench seat. The exterior has received some attention too, with new bumpers, grille, tailgate, and tail lights, plus a custom exhaust system with stainless tips. The odometer's broken, pretty common for these old trucks, showing 25,000 miles, but that's probably not too relevant given the modifications. At $25,000, you're paying for the mechanical upgrades more than the cosmetics. That built 355 engine alone represents a significant investment, and the brake upgrades make this truck much more usable in modern traffic. 15. We're looking at something really unique, a 1965 Ford F200 dually tow truck listed at $15,000. And this one's got an interesting story. Under the hood you've got Ford's mighty 390 FE big block with a 2-barrel carb, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. What's interesting is that while it's a 65 body, it's sitting on a 1975 frame, which actually makes sense for a tow truck conversion as it provides better strength and modern improvements like power steering and power brakes. The seller's being upfront about everything. This truck starts, runs, drives, and stops, with all gears working properly. It's got those awesome big dually fenders, and apparently everything on the tow rig is functional. Being a former Southern California truck from Bakersfield, it's escaped the rust issues that plague many old trucks. Just some light surface rust in spots. The history is pretty cool. It was used as a display piece for a tow company until the owner passed away. The yellow paint is original to when the current seller acquired it, giving it that perfect vintage tow truck look. Being completely honest here, it's currently on non-op status with the DMV, meaning you can't legally drive it on public roads until you register it, but there are no back fees owed, which is good news. At $15,000, you're getting a pretty unique piece of automotive history. These old tow trucks are getting harder to find, especially ones that are mechanically sorted and rust-free. That 390 FE engine is a torque monster, perfect for tow truck duty, and the manual transmission adds to the vintage experience. 16. We're checking out this classic 1969 Ford F250 Highboy that just popped up on Craigslist for $8,500. Let me tell you, these Highboys are becoming increasingly rare finds, And this one's got some interesting features worth talking about. Under the hood, you're getting that beefy 390 V8 engine, a real workhorse from the era that was known for its reliable power. The manual 4-speed transmission paired with 4WD makes this a proper old-school working truck setup. The seller's listing shows 100K miles on the odometer, and while that's decent for a truck of this age, remember these old odometers could have rolled over. The red paint and clean title are definitely positive points. The seller mentions it runs, which is crucial, and says there are many extras, though they haven't specified what those are. Something you'd want to ask about. Being honest here, at $8,500 OBO, or best offer, you're in the ballpark for a running highboy F-250 from this era, especially with the desirable 390 engine. However, you'll want to check for the usual suspects in these old trucks: frame rust, transmission condition, and brake system integrity. The seller states it's in good condition, but as with any 50-plus-year-old vehicle, you'll want to inspect it thoroughly. This could be a solid project truck or even a usable classic with some TLC. Just remember, parts for these old highboys can be tricky to find, so factor that into your decision-making process. If you're interested, I definitely recommend seeing it in person and maybe bringing along someone who knows these old Fords well. 17. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1968 Chevy C20 that's caught my eye at $7,500. Let me break this one down for you because there's quite a bit to unpack here. First off, this truck's packing a 396 big block V8 with an automatic transmission. That's a potent combination that these trucks weren't born with too often. The seller's honest about the odometer having rolled over, so those 88,000 miles shown aren't telling the whole story. What's really catching my attention here is how many original and desirable features this truck has. We're looking at power steering and power brakes, which weren't common in '68, those factory hubcaps, and even the original owner's manual with the dealer ID plate. That's pretty rare to find these days. The woodbed adds a nice touch, and those saddle tanks give you some serious range. The seller mentions it's unmolested, which in classic car speak means it hasn't been heavily modified or butchered up. Always a good thing. They've done some practical upgrades with newer tires and brakes, and that dual exhaust with crossover probably makes this big block sound pretty sweet. The green paint looks period correct from what we can tell. Being straight with you, $7,500 isn't out of line for a big block C20 in good condition, especially with all these original features. However, you'll want to check those typical C20 trouble spots: cab corners, rocker panels, and frame rails near the cab mounts. The fact that it has overload springs suggests it was used as intended, for hauling, so you'll want to check the frame for any fatigue. The seller's mention of it being great for short bed or bagged suggests this could be a solid platform for either restoration or modification, though it almost seems a shame to modify something this original. 18. We're checking out this 1979 Ford F-250 Super Cab 4x4 that's listed for $11,000. Let's be real here. This is one of those trucks that's getting harder to find, especially in running condition. The seller's got a 400 V8 under the hood with a 4-barrel setup, paired with the bulletproof C6 automatic transmission. That's a powertrain combination that's known for being nearly indestructible when maintained properly. What really catches my attention here is the mention of a brand new Dana 44 front axle. That's a serious upgrade, and not a cheap one either. With 147,000 miles showing, that's actually pretty reasonable for a truck of this vintage, and the fact that it's got factory AC is a nice bonus, though you'll want to check if it's still working. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The seller mentions some rust. On these late 70s Fords, that could mean anything from a few bubbles to Swiss cheese, so you'll definitely want to inspect the usual trouble spots: cab corners, rocker panels, bed mounts, and frame rails. The orange paint gives it that classic 70s vibe, but you'll want to look closely at what might be hiding underneath. At $11,000, you're in the ballpark for a running, driving Super Cab 4x4 from this era, especially with the new front axle. The seller's description of excellent mechanical shape and runs and drives great is promising, but as always, you'll want to verify everything in person. 19, we're diving into a classic workhorse that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Get ready to feast your eyes on this 1977 Ford F-250. Now let's get real for a moment. This truck has been around the block a few times, and it's got the battle scars to prove it. The seller mentions that it got into a fight with a tree, which probably left some dents and dings. But hey, that just adds to its rugged charm, right? Despite its run-in with nature, this F-250 is still rocking a newer cab and box, which is a big plus. It's a regular cab, so you won't be bringing the whole family along for the ride, but that's not what this truck is about anyway. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 400 engine that's ready to tackle any job you throw at it. And with a 4-speed manual transmission, you'll have full control over this beast. Plus, with 444 capabilities, you can take this baby off-road and show those trails who's boss. The seller claims the truck has a clean title and just 108,000 miles on the odometer, which is pretty impressive for a vehicle that's been around since the Carter administration. And get this, they've even put in some recent work to make sure everything is in working order. Now, I know what you're thinking. But what about the paint job? Well, it's green. That's about all we know. But who cares about the color when you've got a machine that's built to last? The asking price is $9,000, which might seem steep for a truck that's seen its fair share of adventures. But if you're looking for a reliable workhorse with a ton of character, this 1977 Ford F-250 might just be the one for you. 20. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist. Get ready to check out this 1980 Ford E-150 Custom. First things first, let's talk about the condition of this beauty. The seller claims it's in excellent shape, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. The ad mentions no rust, which is a huge deal for a vehicle that's been around for over 4 decades. You won't have to worry about this van crumbling beneath your feet anytime soon. Now let's pop the hood and see what's powering this E-150. You'll find a trusty 6-cylinder engine that's ready to take you on all your adventures. And with a clean title and 140,000 miles on the odometer, this van has plenty of life left in it. The seller has gone above and beyond to make sure this E-150 is in top-notch condition. They've thrown in a ton of brand new parts, including tires, rims, brakes, shocks, a 9-rear, battery, alternator, carburetor, plugs, valve cover, lifter gaskets, muffler, heater core, blower, and even a Ford radiator. Talk about a comprehensive overhaul. But wait, there's more. The seller has also hooked you up with new door rubbers, strikers, window glides, and tint. And if you're worried about keeping your feet and dash looking fresh, they've got you covered with custom floor and dash mats. The best part? The seller is throwing in a whopping $1,000 worth of extra parts for free. And trust me, there's a lot more than what's pictured in the ad. It's like a treasure trove of van goodies. The asking price for this 1980 Ford E-150 Custom is $10,500, which might seem like a chunk of change. But when you consider all the new parts, the excellent condition, and the bonus freebies, it's actually a pretty sweet deal.